back and do the whole undisputed thing.
Champion.
Right. It
Okay.
just, I mean, they proved the formula.
That's WWE.
Well, they proved the formula with Randy and Tito. You go back, and I mean, that's one of my favorite DVDs. It still works for the last 100 years. I mean, but go back and watch that DVD, and it's like a movie. It really is. The way they set it all up, you actually have to sit and watch the little preview interviews, and they got Randy talking shit, and they got Tito talking shit, and Dana throws down his 2 cents, and Joe Rogan sticks up for it, and this big dramatic thing goes down in the octagon, and then Tito gets his ass spanked in the 5th round. So,
well, I got to tell you, one of the things I like about Dan, I went out to his place where they train, and I took my one friend, my fighter Adam Flowers, who I've got with Jason Salufo for Muay Thai. We took him out there for some ground game, and one of the things I like about Dan is that he's not kidding, he's got a friggin' library, wall to wall, of fights.
It's every fight.
And they spend time, they old school it, man, they spend
it's
time.
It's busters.
They spend time,
It is, and that's what we do, like, we're like, oh, we're going to learn how to, we're going to try this boxing style, we're going to pick out his last 10 fights, and you're like, oh, take those home.
I think that's great though, man, because you can learn so much from tape and emulating. You know, like I said, I had a really good jab back in the old day, and I learned it watching Larry Holmes.
Right. All my guys learn how to hook now watching the Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali. I mean, I show it all to them because, I mean, it's the classic example of working a hook from all directions, and that's the beautiful thing. I do that with Anderson Silva, setting up kicks. We do, anybody you can think of, we're going to break them down, and especially because I encourage all my guys to be individualistic. I want to encourage them to be martial artists. That's really the key. It's not about being competitive fighters so much as it's being about a martial artist. And at that point, you can pick out heroes, you can pick out a style, and we're going to emulate some things because that's what your mind is leading to. And when we get to go that route, you know, you can have, like Zach, my 170, absolutely emulates and loves George St. Pierre. So we break down a lot of St. Pierre fights. You know, I mean, that's just how it goes. Jeff's got his, Nick Diaz. I mean, I've sent him home with 15 Nick Diaz fights, and then we break them down.
And a bag.
You want to be Nick
No
Diaz.
comments.
You saw Nick Diaz at Strikeforce here in St. Louis?
Yes.
Yeah, we watched that.
What was he doing? How was he tagging him so hard with this?
He's not tagging him hard. He's just hitting him a lot.
He's hitting you square, baby. That's the point. I got my nephew doing the same thing, and I got Jeff doing the same thing. See, I don't have to hit you hard, and it's like the old man told me one time.
Hit him though. I mean, he like had.
He's hitting him with medium shots, but he's not having to commit himself.
But here's the thing, Eddie. Here's the thing, though. At least 90% of those shots are slapping him right in the jaw. Well, let me slap you in the jaw. I'll do it open hand, and I guarantee you're going to wobble after 5 or 6 of them. I mean, this is the way it is.
So landing the way they were.
Well, right. Well, that's the whole thing. It's all about accuracy. Yeah. You use those long arms, and if you watch all the way back to the Shirk fight, that's another one of my favorites. Go back to the Shirk fight. He's got his hands down to bait Sean and to punch him in the face. He's centered down low to stop the takedown, and he's using the long arms to get around and work odd angles. He's coming over the top with both hands. He's coming underneath. And he's really defying a lot of the classic boxing strategy. And that's really what it is. He's doing away with a lot of the idea of like the old school straight punches, and he's using the length to keep his head back and work around your defense, and in that he surprises you. And once he gets you surprised, then it's time to move in. Absolutely.
I want to ask you because I was talking to somebody earlier, and they told me and I'm not a Michael Bisping fan either. Not at all.
No, but he had a great performance against Dennis Gang.
That was his best fight ever.
Yeah,
that's what everybody said.
And he showed ground defense that he's never had before.
Right, but those guys in England are stepping up. They have learned quickly that they needed to get a ground game. And I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, you see guys like Zach Light, you know, I mean, he just dropped the fight to T-Wood, but, you know, I mean, he's a great wrestling coach over there in the Wolf Slayer, and, you know, with the addition of Rampage and Chet Congo and those guys going over there, and then you see, like, the Rough House, I believe it's called, was Ross Pearson, Dan Hardy, those guys is another English team. They're working with the 10th Planet guys, and they're really just, they're stepping it up. They're kicking ass, and you know, you got to give major respect to the guys in England right now because they saw their weakness. They realized they were brawlers, and they were living in the old school UFC. They came out, and, you know.
So who you got in Forrest versus Tito this weekend?
I'm hoping Forrest pulls this thing down. I'm hoping he bats that big head around the octagon all night. I'm thinking leg kicks are going to make a big difference. But then again, you can't discount a guy. You know, with Tito, you got one of two possibilities coming out. He's going to be real ring rusted, or he's going to be sharp and ready to roll and looking to prove he's the old animal. Yeah. So which guy shows up? And then Forrest, just like Jen pointed out, which Forrest is going to show up? You know, is he the guy that was winging punches from left and right at Anderson Silva with his jaw stuck up, looking slow, or is he the guy that came out and leg kicked Rampage down? You know,
I'm usually wrong, but I'm going to say I can see Forrest getting caught because Forrest is susceptible to that.
I don't think Tito hits hard enough. He doesn't roll his shoulders. He doesn't work his boxing.
Forrest cuts up though a little bit, and those elbows of Tito's, if he gets them in the ground and pound, it's going to be a problem for Forrest.
And then we get the question though of, you know, Tito is the old wrestler, but again, speaking as a classic wrestler, grew up in a serious program. His wrestling is garbage. It's junior college, man. It's bullshit.
But
it's old school. It worked 10 years ago, great. But I want to see it work against the modern.
You don't see Matt Hughes no more either.
Thank you. Exactly.
But guys get older, but Tito takes a great punch. I think. He's been stopped, but he takes a great punch.
Yeah, he takes a great whooping for the whole 15 minutes. I love it.
I think he gets Forrest down and ground and pounds him and cuts him.
Very possible.
Now we're going to continue on with this with Jamie Pennick in about 7 minutes. But who else do we have coming up this weekend? Real quick.
Oh man, to be honest with you, I'm so stuck on the 105 and looking at all the differences. I'm lost right offhand. I mean,
who else they have on that show?
I got stuck looking like today. I got stuck looking at the Hardy stuff.
Actually, it's Josh Koscheck.
Oh, Koscheck is fighting Rumble.
Yeah.
Man, can Rumble make weight?
Rumble Johnson?
Yeah, can Rumble make weight? I was so sickened by his last fight. Coming in 6 pounds over against Yoshida, there's no excuse. I'm sorry.
He didn't make an excuse.
If you're walking around, that's my point. How many times does he miss weight? How many times are you allowed to do it? You know, I mean, you're a professional.
How many times has he missed weight?
At least 4. 3.
I think they said 4 to 5.
Okay, there you go, 4 or 5. I mean, at least 3 that I know of offhand. And 6
they
pounds
let him
is
start 170 after this.
That's what I'm saying.
A co-main event reward either.
Exactly, it's garbage. But he's a huge dude, and he's an athlete, and they're going to reward him because they need a new face at 170. And that's really the bottom line. Who's excited? Is anybody here excited about Dan Hardy against GSP? Because personally, I think Dan Hardy's going to get mauled.
Yes.
I mean,
this weekend too?
No.
That's the fight.
But at 105,
that fight that just happened, the winner gets GSP, and it happened to be Dan Hardy.
Right. Hardy won that, and I mean what's the point of that?
Because they'll put it in England.
Exactly.
They'll put that show in England.
Exactly.
Well,
there's a whole political thing between England and Canada. There's a whole political thing going on there too. So
is there?
Yeah. So the people in those countries are real hooked on that. Like Americans are tuned out, but England actually still rules Canada.
Okay.
If you don't know that, the Queen is the Queen of Canada too, and it pisses them off. There's a whole thing. It's just like they're pissy with the French because of the Quebecers.
We got a caller calling who's going to comment about the Koscheck fight. Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. I just wanted to get this off my chest and actually tell someone else. You heard it here first. I think Anthony Johnson will totally ruin Josh Koscheck, and before the year's out, he will beat Anderson Silva for the middleweight title. Thank you.
Ooh, good call.
Well, I'm pretty sure he's gonna ruin
Thank you,
Anthony.
Yeah,
appreciate that, Rumble. But the whole fight in Anderson, I mean, that we maybe need to let the boy grow a little bit. I mean, my question is right, and I appreciate that if we did, and God bless you.
He should have said who he was if we could have given him.
Yeah, that would have been cool, man. Because for real, if you're right,
it's on tape, you know.
Yeah, hopefully we.
I'll tell you what, though, I go back to watching Silva against Forrest Griffin, and he looked bigger than Forrest.
Yes, he's a monster.
He's huge.
He's a monster.
Everybody here locally that saw him down at the weigh-ins that were fighting locally said he looked as big as Arlovsky, standing next to Arlovsky. I mean, he's a beast.
Yeah, he's a monster. People have no idea how big he is.
He's a big man.
Right, they look at him like, whoa. And that's the whole thing. Like when Rumble's huge, but
he's huge against 170.
Let's be
be
realistic.
6'4", and he's fighting at 170. 6'4" is huge compared to a guy 5'7".
I don't think he's that tall.
Yeah, he's 6'4".
He looked bigger than the 205 pounder.
Yeah, I mean he's a monster, and seriously, I mean that's a guy I gotta wonder how he's making